Well, hello again, and welcome to another episode of Wrestling Beyond the Pulpit with the Good News Gang. We are glad that you have come back to join us for another discussion, but my name is Pastor Matt West, and I serve at Marble Memorial United Methodist Church in Milan, Michigan. And I'm joined this week by my tag team partners, Pastor Matt Osborne. I've already forgot. Tell me your new appointment.
Millington
UMC. Yes, thank you, Pastor Matt. Pastor Kim Metzer from Hope and Welcome Corners UMC in Hastings is with us again. And of course, last but not least, Pastor Curtis the Professor Clark from Marysville UMC. And we are excited to be able to share again with you this week another exciting topic. And we think we might have another winner for you this week. But we are going to discuss a recent article that we all read that contains a top 10 list, and this is 10 church activities that need to go. Controversy? Maybe. We'll see. So before we get started with that list, since it's been a little bit, I just wanted to check in. How's everybody doing today?
Doing good.
Doing good. Thumbs up. Thank you.
In the midst of summer, looking forward to that. It's so nice to have summer, right? The long days, the nice weather. But as a parent, it's such a beautiful thing to look forward to fall starting. You have a 30-day countdown as you start getting ready for school and, and even the church. Church life tends to take on more of a routine, opportunity in the fall. So it's a good time to enjoy the last bit of summer there and get some few more things on the checklist done.
Well, and your first month is almost over. How's it going in Millington?
Pretty good. People are still showing up,
Good time.
That's a good
so the
sign.
first is really good. I've been able to go to the grocery store and the gas station without no longer using my GPS. So win. I know how to get to basic places. I've tried 3 different pizza places. Also very important, a new setting to figure out where you got to get your pie. So it's a lot of fun,
Yeah, absolutely.
I will have to say, I think in the future we need to coordinate the wardrobe. I'm really kind of irked. I didn't wear my Michigan State shirt today. Nat came rolling in that yellow abomination, and that's okay. I'll be fine. It's fine.
We'll pray for him.
I'm just a reminder of God's grace. So when people tune in that don't like Ann Arbor or that area, it's just a reminder of
I love Ann Arbor. It's a great town.
It is. It's quite nice, being close to it myself. It's it's nice to have some options.
Yes.
Well, my friends, let's hop into this list here. This may be 1 episode, maybe 2, who knows, maybe 3. It just depends on how long we talk about some of these items on this list. But starting with the first one, again, this is a top 10 list from an article we read recently called 10 Church Activities That Need to Go. And the first one on this list is events that are grandfathered in. And go.
Go.
Oh.
I think we all have walked into appointments and into churches where there has been a history or a legacy of something, whether it's a fundraiser, a dinner, a ministry, something that was there before we got there, was there before the previous pastor got there. It's going to be there after we, maybe after we leave. And we're kind of left wondering and looking at it with fresh eyes. And that's what we're trained to do. Is to, when we come into places, to look at the ministries and the missions of the church and ask, okay, what's its purpose? Who is it serving? And those are fair questions to ask. And sometimes, those long-held traditions of, and I'll throw out the example because we were talking about it before, of, the roast beef dinner or the pork roast dinner or the chicken dinner, whatever it might have been, whatever your favorite food is. It was started back, 30, 40 years ago, and as a mission or as an outreach, and now it's become, the gathering for the frozen chosen. and we have to wonder why.
Yes.
It's
Or it was for the youth mission trip
right.
every year, and now it's become, this is the way we're going to pay our quarterly insurance bill.
Right.
Right.
Or it's no longer it doesn't have that specific purpose.
Right. Right.
Well, I want to share real quick from the article. The person who wrote this does this in a humorous way or what, but one of the things that stood out about this particular item on the list was, she makes a slight exaggeration about these events that we're talking about, but then she says, there are so many churches that cling on to declining and already dead activities. Why? Because it's always been something we do. Here's the problem, though. When we refuse to cut back the events that are withering, we're taking time and resources away from activities and ministries that are thriving. And I think sometimes that's the difficulty for a lot of church folk to grasp onto. It's not that we as pastors don't like that activity, or we're just trying to push people out the door. It's not vital. If it's not vital, why continue doing it when we could be spending our time and energy doing something that could be, or we might have something that's already going on that if we put more effort into it could be even that much better.
Right. In this day and age, this computer age, we talk a lot about bandwidth and our streaming, how much bandwidth we have. Well, as people, we only have so much bandwidth. So if we're asking people to volunteer for this, and this, but only that is really vital, then this, and this is taking away from that. And we all have to make decisions on how we use our time. And it's not that life's fair, but it's not fair to our people even to ask them for more of their time for something that's not really vital, and we're just doing because we've always done it.
Well, and if we're looking at scripture too, and this is just a quick one-liner from John 15:2.
Yeah,
I know, right? Yeah.
Crazy.
Is Jesus says, every branch that does not bear fruit, he takes away. Mm-hmm. And every branch that bears fruit, he prunes so that it can bear more. Mm-hmm. Jesus was making that illustration. It's something that we've all preached on, but just remember that that's a biblical standard. Like, this isn't something that we went to a seminar, and some of us might have had training on it or something, but wouldn't go to a seminar and like, gee whiz, that's a neat idea, we should do that. No, it was back in scripture. Jesus was saying some of the things that we're doing are no good anymore, or they've become something they were never intended to do. So the things that are in me, that are of me, that aren't bearing fruit, cut them off. Stop doing them. If it's not bearing fruit for Christ, then no. But if it is, then we still have to take care of that and morph it and don't leave it the same. Is there ways we can do better? Is there a way we can advertise it more? I mean, that's the biggest thing of it too. How do people know that we have the greatest fill in the blank going at the church if we never advertise it? How will people ever find out that we have this thing going on? And so those are the questions we ask, but it's a biblically founded principle from the man himself. He said, if drawing people close to me, cool, keep it going, make it better. If not, get rid of it.
Right.
Well, and there have been ministries and churches that have been going on for years that remain vital and they continue to grow, or there is that broader vision of continuing to bring people in so that it manifests and continues to be successful. But then there are those where it's like there's a group of people that decide to get together to do something, and as they leave, as they pass on, whatever it may be, they don't see that it's not bearing new fruit, and then they just wait until it withers before they'll let it go, as opposed to just going, well, maybe it's time for something new. Because much like a lot of other things in the church, we fail to adapt, not to conform to society, but also realize that something that worked 20 years ago might not work today.
Right. The message doesn't change, the way of delivering it does.
Right.
And that can apply to the church as a whole. As I'm just going to throw that out there.
Is that seminary wisdom you're sharing with us?
No, not at all. No. This is lived experience. And why are we even meeting on Sunday morning at the time that we do? Why do we structure worship in the way that we do? Is it because it's the way that makes us comfortable? It's the way we've always worshiped, so we want to always worship that way. And I'm running into the muck now, but I those are the hard questions we have to ask. Why are we even having worship at all? Why are we here on a Sunday morning?
And see, Kim, I don't think that you're asking that question. Like, I don't want people to misunderstand, because we have a lot of conversation just in general, right? Like, the only time we talk is not just when we set up for this podcast. Is those questions are framed in a way where sometimes it's just to reinvigorate that we are doing the right things.
Right.
But we have to ask it that way to say, is what we're doing still relevant? It's not to get rid of it. It's just saying, why are we doing it if we're just going through the motions? Because I just had this interesting conversation with our church currently, because, we had the plates put aside, in the front, and things were going, and the treasurer report showed that there wasn't a dip since we started doing that. So it wasn't, we have to get the ushers back and pass the plates in order to get, better response to offering. So, but some of our leadership said that we did want to do that because it was letting us have a little bit more of a solidified time of honoring what it means to give back to Christ, or having a spot built into the service when there's taken offering for someone to share what something happened as a result of that offering, like someone had this experience or something. So, okay, now we're defending why, we're going to build something around this. So I asked, well, so are we singing the doxology? Because the reality is, in a lot of Methodist churches, the doxology is associated with offering, but it doesn't have to be. It's not like all of a sudden the offering isn't valid because there's no doxology, but they sort of go together. That's the question. So I asked it, and people sort of got, well, are you trying to take the doxology away? And I'm like, no, I just asked you the question. Is it valid that we do this? Like, does it have to go together, or could we sing a different song?
Right.
You know what I mean? Could we have a different response? And it was interesting that some of us couldn't even remember. And right now, we're not sure. Does the doxology come before you pray for the offering? Or do you set it down, pray, and then it's doxology? Like, and that's the thing. If you can't remember, then was it really something that was significant, or was it routine? So I'm chuckling about that a little bit, that you're not saying to get rid of it. You're just like, why are we doing this if nobody can remember when it happened?
Yeah. And I think it's important too, because you've all made some awesome points, especially, to go back a few to what Pastor Matt said about looking at the things that we're doing and being able to maybe tweak them in one way or the other, that then they become something different and something new.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a change we can make that makes it more outward focused, things like that. And I think in this rush to get back to church life after COVID, that we have to be sensible and walk back with intention, to not just go back to doing stuff because we missed doing it the last 16 months.
Right.
Really given us COVID has really given us the authority. Maybe that's the bad word to use. It has given us the opportunity to look at what we've been doing as a church
Mm-hmm.
in these events and asking why.
Mm-hmm.
And can we still do it the same way? Does it need to be done the same way? And I think, again, to get back to this idea of let's not just rush back into doing it because we missed doing it, but let's, again, and I think Kim's point too, that there's only so much we can draw from as far as energy and talent and time from people, that, man, we have to maximize that time. And if I've only got 3 swings at the bat, or three plate appearances during a baseball game, man, I want to go at least 1 for 3 or 2 for 3. I don't want to strike out all 3 times.
Right.
So
I think, too, when you're talking about events, a couple of things that you have to take into consideration is one, is it fellowship or hospitality? If it's fellowship, it's certainly inward focused and it's only pertaining to a certain amount of people, where if it's hospitality, then you're truly opening the doors of the church to anybody and everybody. the other thing I think you have to take into consideration too, in terms of, not doing it just because you've done it, but does it align with your vision? Like, does it
Right.
help you move your vision forward as a church, or are you doing it just for the sake of doing it? So, all right, well, hey, let's take a look at the next thing on this list. The second item on this list is offering prayer at the front of the sanctuary. Just to give some context, it says, while wrapping up the service, your pastor motions for the prayer team to come forward as he informs the congregation that these people standing in front of the entire church are willing to pray with anyone. So then they ask the question, see how this might deter someone. It requires a person to build up the courage to walk all the way up to the front of the church where everyone can see. That's not exactly the best idea for something as personal as prayer. Practice this.
We've done it a couple of times since COVID. Since we've been back, we've had a couple of opportunities for people to come forth and experience that. I see both sides of the argument. I think scripturally, we're told in James, I believe it is, that if you have an issue, if you've got an ailment, to present yourself before the elders of the church for them to lay hands on you. Paul talks about laying hands on Timothy before he sends him out. So we have a biblical example of the importance of this kind of ministry. But I also see that, there are people who just, they're not going to do that. They want prayer, but maybe they want that privacy. And so maybe it's offering both, being able to offer time and space for both of those. But I would caution, at least for me, to totally take that away, because we've all can probably share stories of when we've done that in our churches and how powerful it is.
Mm-hmm.
In my home church, we had started offering prayer after service. So like we set up a space, kind of like a prayer room space or what, so that those who wanted prayer could come after service. And it was kind of a rotation between, my pastor and myself and like one other staff member, where we would go back and wait a few minutes, and, we would have 2 or 3 people maybe come back, and some weeks there was nobody, but it was that opportunity to get that prayer that they needed, but in some sense private, versus, a lot of training or thought of this, surrounds the guest. And for the guest, that's very awkward to walk up in front of a group of people that you don't know and everybody look at you while you're getting prayed upon. So, I mean, I'm with you on the fact that you could certainly go either way with this one. I would probably, because I try, like I said, my focus tends to be on the guest. So I would probably do something like my home church and, offer prayer afterwards, in private, versus, I mean, that's no different to me. It's almost like going, okay, who's new here today? And like, come on down, we're going to pray for you. It's like, oh boy, what'd I get myself into? So there, you could definitely make an argument for both sides.
Yeah. I think it's important to have it available in both ways, because for the ones that are used to that, it's a way of being prayed for, and it's very relevant and meaningful for them. At our church, there were 4 chairs between the front, between the stage and the first pew, and I didn't know what they were. I asked Pastor Rod at Redeemer, I'm like, what do you suppose these chairs are? And I can't remember what he called it, but basically it's like the weeping bench or something. It's an old school tradition where if you needed prayer, you knew that's where you went, and it had never been explained to me, and I haven't been good about explaining it, but we've had times where people have come up to those chairs and sat, and another congregation member will come alongside that person and pray with them, and that is very powerful to see that in action. And I left most of our rail down after a wedding, but some of it is still up. And I think that's important as well, because people do, especially after communion, will stop at the rail and pray. And that's very powerful for people to see as well, that you're just in prayer. Prayer is a vital part of worship, and however we can make that happen is important.
Let me ask you this. Would it make much of a difference, or maybe make it less awkward, maybe if people just rose, they raise their hand and we go to them to pray over them as opposed to calling them forward?
It could.
Sometimes I think depends on the size of the church too, because the town and country church that has 30 or less people, these are the intimate things that I think they expect in that place. Yes. Mm-hmm. That style of congregation, because it's so small, where the bigger you get, the harder it is to see those individual spots without having a different prayer group. With those kind of things, I really like the idea, like Matt, you said very specifically, you're thinking in the line of a visitor, which we should, because you think, but I'm also thinking when you're in the life of the church, sometimes I wonder, is that part of a discipleship growth? Because as the people of the congregation, when they go up, I can only imagine as a visitor, you'd be like, I ain't going up there. Or it's gonna be a cold day, and you know what, before you catch me going up there. But to the congregation member that's going up there, they are not a visitor. They are here. They've served alongside. They've loved. They've been through the ups and downs. Like, this is family relationship. So for them to come up, that's almost a step in their growth, with this body of Christ. So I wonder, when there's space for both, like you were saying that, hey guys, if you're new and you'd like to come over here, a little private, we have people, a prayer team over there. They're wearing the yellow, sash or whatever like that. So you'll see them in the nursery there, something to identify them, right? But I like that there's that opportunity, because I think that's part of, I've heard countless stories of 3 years ago, I never would have done something like that.
Right.
But it shows that growth, because now when you do go up there as a visitor, you might be intimidated going up there, but as a full-fledged, 10-year anniversary member, you're going up there telling the church, come up with me. I'm inviting you into this struggle, or I'm inviting you into, what's going on in my life. So I can see both ways, but the question, in far as this list, like, should go or should be questioned, I think, is it routine? Do you do it every week? Do you do it once a month? I think we've all been to those routine things where when you offer prayer at the end, is it just there? Are you does it seem so routine where you're just like, all right, we got our prayer team coming up. If you want to come up, do this. And it's like a commercial. But if it's authentic in that moment, or an occasion, we might not have this every time, but maybe once a month we have it, or maybe, on a different communion Sunday, or maybe it's just on communion Sunday. We're bearing everything there. So if tears happen to fall, we'll have a prayer team here. I wonder if something like this is sort of like, number one, why are you offering prayer in the sanctuary at the service? Like, what's the point of it?
Right.
Are we doing it just to do it? Or could we move it along and sing a different song instead? Or what, are we doing it just because that's what we did in service before the pandemic? Or is there a legit reason why we're setting this time aside because it's important to the life of our church, as it get responded to?
Good thought. All right. Well, are we ready to move on to the next one?
Sure.
Excuse me. Ooh, here we go. Number 3, stereotypical men's and women's events. The writer of this article says, friends, I have a huge pet peeve. Boring women's events. I look over at men's ministry and they get to do lumberjack races, have golf outings, and go hiking. It's all adventures all the time. I'm left sipping tea, crafting things made of lace, and eating a light lunch. Being a woman doesn't exclude me from wanting to get my hands dirty and eat hearty meals. I would love to have a woman's event that resembles American Ninja Warrior, followed by eating all the carbs I can find.
But it goes both ways. She goes on to say.
Yes.
She said, I've had male friends petition to have men's ministry events that are laid back. Coffee and fellowship sounds perfect to them. So the moral of the story is that women's events don't always have to include talking indoors, and all men's events don't have to include physically intense outdoor activities.
Yes.
So,
Amen.
I don't know. I haven't experienced a lot of that, so I don't know if you all have had or not. I mean, I don't know.
I'm not a fan of the lumberjack games, but I am a fan of the lumberjack breakfast.
Yeah.
Same. Same.
I have seen some, women's events. My wife has gone to some that are just that, the stereotypical, making beeswax candles and potpourri pots or whatever, Not that there's not value in the connection and the fellowship time, but I think if we're trying to make deeper connections and draw a more diverse group of people, I think it kind of falls back to the first questions, why are we doing it? Who are we trying to reach?
Right.
What's the point? And with the men's stuff, I couldn't agree more. I'm not a huge fan of these exclusive men's, nights and things. I think there's time when men need to fellowship together, hang out together, but it doesn't have to be that, again, that culturally typical, let's throw some dead cow on the grill and talk about, here's the thing. I don't own a truck. I don't own a gun. I don't own camouflage. So that's, you're going to,
you wouldn't survive in Hastings then.
You're going to exclude me, and I don't have anything orange either. So, if that's what the typical male church experience, Bible experience is going to be like, I'm not coming because that's just not my thing.
Actually, you would survive here in Hastings because the men go to coffee and then have Bible study. So
right,
there you go.
I can do that, or let's go out and grab a beer and talk about Jesus. That's cool. But if it's revolving around archery, guns, shooting, sporting clays, camouflage, or trucks, I'm out.
Well, I think it's, again, like everything, we've talked about up to this point, it's about evaluating what you're doing, because when you come into a new environment, especially think about those people who are checking out your church and they want to get involved, and they're like, oh, there's a men's group, and so you kind of build up that excitement of like, I'm going to go check this group out. And then you get there and it's like, really? Yeah. Goodness. Okay. I was hoping for something else,
I think, within our denomination too, we see this in our self-identified men's and women's, organizations, our UMWs and our UMMs. I think, and I'm going to step aside for the lightning bolt here, or for whatever. I think they're having a crisis of identity as far as who they're trying to reach, because I see locally some of the things that are being done, and it's kind of like that's such an old model of gathering.
Yes.
Yeah, that's, I mean, hopefully she doesn't get upset for me speaking on her behalf, but she shared this with me, like for my wife, the difficulty for her is, sometimes, these groups, they'll meet during the day. She works.
Mm-hmm.
She's tried to get involved in that, where even though they'll name it something else, it's a UMW group. And that's not what she's looking for. I mean, she doesn't want to come and have a business session and then discuss, when the next bake sale is going to be or whatever. She's looking for life application and support, of like, hey, let's be here for each other. Let's talk about what we're struggling with, or let's see if we can find a book that might help us through this, phase of life that we're all going through right now. And then there are those that want to sip tea and make things a lace and eat a light meal, and I mean, I've been a part of men's groups where, like, one of my favorites was, again, back to my home church, we called it Beer and Bible, and we met down at a local restaurant, and you could have a beer or coffee or whatever. And we did our Bible study, and it was enjoyable. We spent time supporting each other as well as going through whatever our study was. and then I've sat in some real duds that it was just like, gosh, I was really hoping for more. And it's just, let's, act like a, group of old guys that are getting together just for the sake of,
Right.
we've been doing it for 20 years. And,
And if we're trying to reach the generation behind us, which I think we're all trying to do, we have to look and just ask, is what we're doing, again, is what we're doing in interest for them? I mean, is it things that are relevant, that are meaningful to them? And that's a hard question.
And again, it's not any disrespect to those that have been around, but it's adapting to the day, not conforming to society, but as Kim said, it's all about the delivery. It's not the message, it's the delivery. So
and there is value in men's and women's Bible studies, because we do come to life from a different perspective. And often that's based on our gender, sometimes not, could be our age group or whatever, because I also see value in intergenerational events. And we don't have a lot of people at either of my churches. So when we restart, I'm going to call it Christian Ed, actually small groups on Sunday morning, I'm not going to call it Sunday school and have an adult group and a youth group. Because we just don't have that many people. I think there's value in the generations being together in a small group, not led by me.
Right.
What?
And I've been encouraging that for a while, for people to get out, during the week, to get together with some friends and discuss that week's scripture. And I went hard last week, or week before last. It doesn't have to be a formal program of the church for us to get together and discuss scripture, or just being a Christian. Grab a friend and get some coffee and have a discussion. Or go out and clay shoot if that's your style. I mean, that's not mine either, but
not invite Pastor Curtis.
Yes, we won't. I have noted that. I'm not inviting Curtis to any of those. So
when we get some new apparel at the church, I'm going to get some camouflage and I'll send you one.
Oh, that's
going to get overwhelmed with camouflage now.
Yes, you will be.
I don't want camouflage. I'll send it back.
Hopefully you don't have a car dealer in your congregation. They'll be selling.
No amount of camouflage is going to be able to hide what I got.
A hunk of burning love.
6'2", 290. It just isn't going to work.
We'll just send you a bunch of green apparel so that you'll blend into your screen. That's the new camouflage.
Right.
Yes. Green. And I'm going with the assumption that the M on your hat is from Marysville.
It is from Marysville. Go Vikings. Okay. Go Vikings. Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
All right. Well, let's move along. The fourth item on this list of 10 things or 10 church activities that need to go is having parents stand up on Mother's Day or Father's Day.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's a difficult. Those are difficult days. Just one from the standpoint of, I think we've talked about this before, whether it's off camera or on camera, just not everybody has a wonderful relationship with their mother or father. And what about those that want to be a mother or father and feel excluded when we do these things like, okay, let's have all the mothers stand up. Oh, round of applause for them. Thank you for bearing children. And,
and
making dinner and all that good stuff. And, dads, thanks for mowing the lawn and, being a part of the process. But,
some broken families too. What if it happens their weekend?
Right.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, that's a shot in the face. Oh, my kid's not here with me because I have to share custody. And
Again, it's us as the church looking at the culture that we're doing church in not changing our message,
Right.
but being respectful of the people who are in our pews and the people who are walking in our doors of what they're dealing with everyday life.
Yeah.
I know some people who are struggling with trying to, become parents. And unless you've gone through it, it is an absolute battle. And at the church where we want to be showing love and extending grace, when we, isolate and lift people up like that, it's for those who are really in that struggle, it can really be heartbreaking.
Yes.
And I think it extends to the, in the tail end of this comment that got us talking was, well, then I think we have to follow that same urging to pause and maybe move away from that, is also from the pointed sermon. It doesn't have to constantly be about Eunice and Lois. It doesn't have to be Mother's Day every single time or Father's Day about something. When they come up in the normal rotation, they would probably be more well received not on Father's Day or Mother's Day. It's just another biblical, message and life application. But maybe to not have that day, where we sing those same songs, we always have a message directed strictly at that. Because just to not have people stand up and down is one thing, but if you crap the whole service around mom or dad, you're missing the point too,
Right. And that's not to say that we shouldn't acknowledge that it's Mother's Day and Father's Day, because we should. And we do need to acknowledge the parents in our congregations and the hard work that it is. But we can do that without being hurtful. Acknowledging. Absolutely. It's hard, but if you care, you can do it.
There's a way to make everybody feel included. I mean, I shared, I found, a Mother's Day and Father's Day message. It was called Lasting Legacy, but I tried to shape it in the way that it included everybody. It wasn't like I was just specifically talking to mothers or fathers on those 2 days. It was like, it was a message for everybody.
Yeah.
Or trying to emphasize that, in some shape or form, we're all mothers and fathers. We might not be in the stereotypical way of having our own children, but in some way or fashion, whether it's as a role model, a teacher, a parent, whatever it may be, we all are mothers and fathers in some point. But I think I agree with this article and the fact that we have to get away from that stereotypical, like, if you have children, mother and father, stand up and, let us praise you. Yes, I'm very thankful for parents because that hopefully brings on the next generation in our churches. But, there was a line in the article that says, while some parents stand up to receive applause from the congregation, there might be others sitting next to them who are choking back tears.
Right. I think one of the things too we have to remember is, sometimes in life there are tragic events where mothers and fathers lose a child.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Are they still viewed? I mean, I still see them as a parent, as a mother and father, but that memory, that loss is then exacerbated in the sanctuary where do they stand? Do they not? And it's just not a space where we want to be able to exclude people.
Right.
Well, I think we got time that we can get one more in, and so we can split this list in half and maybe get the other half next week. We'll see if we can accomplish that. But this is an interesting one. I'm curious to see what your guys' thoughts are on this. But number 5 on this list, slime, pie, dunk, duct tape, shave the head of the pastor. For some of us, there isn't a whole lot to shave or, whatnot. But I guess, let me share from the article. It says, it delights me when churches encourage their youth to get involved in service and fundraising. But what bothers me is when a church overshadows the cause they're working towards with the reward of embarrassing the pastor. I'm pretty easygoing and willing to participate in most things, but if the focus is on just like, let's get the pastor versus raising the money for whatever cause or what, service you're trying to do, that certainly could, be an issue, I guess, is if that's what, because it says, which are the kids going to remember, the school kids in Haiti or getting to dump slime on their pastor's head?
Mhm.
I've done all of those, or at least 3 of those. I've had my head shaved, I've taken a pie in the face, and I've had my beard shaved. But they were all ones where I offered to do that. It wasn't where someone came to me and said, "Hey, well, if." It wasn't where someone came and said, "Hey, if we raise this, will you do this?" No, it was something that I said, "If we raise this, I'll be willing to do." And so, I'm okay with those things. Again, as long as the person who's the pastor or whoever might be, if he or she initiates the reward,
Right.
I think it's a little fun,
Mhm.
But I also see the point of the article too, that we don't want to overshadow the need of the event that's being raised and the funds are being raised for.
Right.
Mission.
And I think every once in a while, it just is a fun thing, especially with youth. I'm not sure we should encourage our adults towards that, but just I don't know. It's the same as doing that with a teacher or just getting one over on the authority kind of thing. And I don't know, just something in fun.
Pastor Matt, is that how you ended up with the haircut you've got?
Yeah. One time they blew me away by doubling their fundraising, and it's just been that way ever since. And that's what I wonder too is we have some fun with it. But like when Curtis shaved off his beard, I was thinking to myself, I was like, yes, that was fun in the moment, but I also like the pictures that were taken after.
Yeah.
So whenever that comes up, it's always going to be that moment of, he doesn't normally look like that, but in honor of this one really cool thing that he asked the church to do, and they had never done something like this before. They went way beyond their comfort zone or what was expected of them. And so now in his Facebook thread, every year he's reminded of, remember that one time that they really stepped up, and in the history pages of things, at the churches, when they look back at those mission trips and stuff, they're going to see that Curtis' tan line is a little different because he didn't, his beard line wasn't there, and I think that's just such a reminder of, you get to tell that story every time. Do you remember when we surpassed that crazy goal and he shaved it? Like, I never saw him, and his kids never saw him without a beard, but that one time, he decided it was worth it to do that. So I like that the pastor and this kind of stuff isn't the focus, but that's kind of that tweaking. That we were talking about. Like, I don't mind doing this, but when you don't lead right out with that, go there, or like maybe you don't even do it right out the gate, but week number 3, you're like, I just don't think we're there yet. I don't think you guys are taking this seriously. So I'm willing to shave off this half of my facial hair. And you know what? I'm going to show up to the football game like that in the fall, because people are going to wonder what's going on, and I get to tell the story that my church is going to send a record amount of kids to a mission trip, from our church. That's why I'm going to do it, so that it raises conversation for it. Not
all about the impact. And I think especially something that's very impactful, like shaving. Maybe not pie in the face or water dunk tank or whatever, but
why do you
that really, what's that?
Why do you want to pie the pastor? Nothing but love on you and teach you and lead you. Why do you want to pie us?
But something that is not permanent, but is really, it lasts after the moment. Like Curtis looking like a teenager for several weeks after his beard was shaved off. Those kinds of things. I don't know if I can.
And I think as long as it's not like every month too, it's
right.
Once every couple of years, again, at the leader's discretion, I think is okay.
Yeah. Well, and if a female pastor allows her head to be shaved, how impactful would that be? Just saying.
Yeah. I'd pay to see that.
We've seen those kind of things when someone is battling cancer or going through a hard time, when people walk alongside and shave their head or dye their hair or whatever. I think it's in that same spirit. We're not trying to make a show of ourselves. We're
Right.
trying to encourage and motivate people, I think, and that's okay.
And it goes back to the first point
Yep.
that we can end with is
Yep.
why are we doing it? Yeah.
Right.
It's Pastor Matt's journey that we've all witnessed, from having a haircut similar to mine,
Yes.
having everything going on that he has now. I'm curious what it would take, what circumstance, to tell Melissa, you know what? I put my locks of love out there on the line. Like, what would have to be the scenario to do that? And it's okay if you don't have an answer, but it's interesting because, I got a shaved head, and those kind of things. But, that would be a bit of more of an ask for you. And I wonder, what would that take? What level of stepping outside the box or coming up with,
It would take some strong convincing of Melissa, because she is, I don't think she's opposed to like a normal haircut, but for me to go back to a shaved head, she is opposed to that option, I guess,
So you check with Melissa and report back next week.
I will have
that
to.
language. A normal haircut, not a shaving of the head.
Well, it is kind of funny in the fact that for years I shaved my head, mainly because I was just too cheap to go pay for a haircut, so I just clipped it myself. But now it's like I've had one trim since I've let my hair grow out. And of course, as you talk about Facebook memories coming back, to see the difference from a year ago to now, it's like, oh, wow. Like, kind of crazy, but I don't know. I get that question a lot as far as if I'm ever going to get a haircut or how long am I going to let it grow. We have some good friends of ours that live in Edwardsburg, and they have a son who's got quite a head of hair on him. And I said, well, maybe when I catch up to him. And when I made that comment one time, my mother said she would cut it while I was sleeping. So
my son hasn't cut his hair in a year and a half. So he has flowing locks, and his brother-in-law gives him much grief over it. I'm okay with it. It's all good.
I get a lot of compliments, so it's, kind of nice. And
I'm willing to throw this out here as a place for us to start that conversation. If we get Pastor Curtis to wear a Hunter's orange and camo sport coat for his Christmas Eve service, would that be that's embroidered, says Reverend Clark on it? Would that be enough to make
the bullseye on the back?
only if he shows up to church in a pickup as well.
And that's the thing. I would love a pickup truck, but I don't have one.
Right.
So if someone wants to give me a pickup truck, I will absolutely take it.
So noted.
Yeah.
Well, my brothers and sister, we've missed Pastor Jackie being a part of this conversation, and hopefully it won't be long before she can join us again. But it has been good after being gone for a couple weeks for this and that to rejoin you. And I've enjoyed this discussion and look forward to the rest of this list next week when we can finish out the top 10 things that church, or 10 church activities that need to go. So we got through 5 of them. Hopefully we can get through the next 5 next week. I don't know. Number 1, or I guess the last one on the list, it may take us a little bit of time. So that may be an episode in itself. We'll see. But any final thoughts or words before we say goodbye?
Always ask why.
Yep.
We're
To an extent, I don't want why to be the question every time over every thought, but yes.
Trying to be a catalyst for conversation. So, for those of you who are watching and participating in this, we'd love to hear what your thoughts were on it. Some things where you agreed, disagreed, somewhere in the middle, or maybe even something that doesn't make the list that you're questioning about in your local church.
Right.
I'd love to hear about it.
Definitely would love some of that feedback. That is the one part, I think we would like to see more of as part of Wrestling Beyond the Pulpit, is some interaction with our audience in terms of, comments and feedback and thoughts on what we're discussing or what we're sharing, whether it be
subscribe to our channel.
Yeah. Whether it be in the comments of the videos or whether you share with us on Sunday after service or what, we'd love to hear what you're thinking. So, well, that wraps up this episode of Wrestling Beyond the Pulpit with the Good News Gang. Thank you for joining us. And until next time, peace be with you.